everyone, my name is Laura Landers. I'm an AmeriCorps member with the Arkansas Reads program. The Literacy Council where I volunteer is the Ozark Foothills Literacy Project, OFLP for short. I hope you will join me each week in reading and discussing a book, one chapter at a time. Feel free to discuss in the comments. All I ask is that we keep it friendly. Also, please click on the registration link in the description box below and fill out the form to become an official member of the YouTube Book Club. Heroes of America Illustrated Lives. Clara Barton and the American Red Cross by Eve Marco. Chapter illustrations by Pablo Marcos. Cover illustration by Jordi Torres. To start from Chapter 1, click the link in the description box below. Chapter 11. The Search for Missing Soldiers. Clara worked as a Civil War nurse for 2 more years. But she never forgot her promise to young Henry Butler. Now she was getting hundreds of letters from brothers, sisters, and parents of missing Union soldiers. Can you imagine how terrible it is to send your son to fight in the war and then never hear from him again? She said to her sister Sally in Washington. He might be a prisoner in the hands of the Confederate soldiers. He might be lying wounded in one of our hospitals. What if he's dead? Sally said to Clara. Then at least I should find out how he died and where his grave lies. That way his family could visit and bring flowers and say prayers. Sally said with a little smile. It sounds to me as if Clara Barton is looking for a new job. Clara laughed. You know me so well, Sally. But Clara's dark eyes turned serious again. The war will end soon, she said. When that happens, our soldiers will finally be able to go home. But many soldiers will never go home, like Henry's brother Jimmy. Their families won't know what happened to them. I would like to find out and let them know. That's a big job, Clara, Sally said. How will you do it? Clara thought for a minute. I think I'll write to President Lincoln and ask him for his help. So in February 1865, Clara wrote to Abraham Lincoln asking for his permission and help in finding missing Union soldiers. In March, she received his answer, authorizing her on behalf of the United States government to find out all information about missing soldiers, including prisoners of war. But the job was enormous. At least 200,000 Union soldiers were not accounted for. Most of them were dead, but their families didn't know where they fell or where they were buried. Clara was determined to find out and let them know. And then the day Clara Barton had prayed and wished for so fervently finally arrived. On April 9th, 1865, Robert E. Lee, the commander of the Confederate armies, surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant, commander of the Union Army. The Civil War was over. Clara was so happy she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She'd seen so many young men wounded. She'd seen so many die. No more young men coming to her with bullets in their shoulders or their legs. No more bloody bandages. No more surgeons and hospitals and the cries of dying men. For several days, Clara and all of Washington was filled with joy and relief. But only 5 days later, the joy turned to grief. On April 14th, Abraham Lincoln and his wife Mary went to Ford's Theater in Washington to see a play. Lincoln was tired. The Civil War had drained all his energy and he was exhausted. But that night, John Wilkes Booth, an actor, made his way into the balcony theater box above the stage where Lincoln sat with his wife. Booth raised his pistol and shot the president. By morning, Abraham Lincoln was dead. Clara was desolate. Her president was dead. The following day, Clara went to visit her sister. "Do you know, Sally," she said, her voice almost cracking, "that one of the last letters that President Lincoln ever wrote was the letter in which he asked me to find out what happened to our missing soldiers. I must go on with that job. I would be letting him down if I didn't keep on with my efforts." "But Clara, how will you manage?" Sally asked her. "President Lincoln is dead, and you need more money. You will be looking for 200,000 missing soldiers. You will need to pay your assistants and send out thousands of letters. Where will you get the money?" "I'm getting some money from Congress," Clara told her. "That won't be enough." Clara thought a minute. Then her eyes brightened. "I have an idea. I'll give lectures. People will pay to come and listen to the lectures, and we'll use the money to search for our missing soldiers." "Lectures? About what?" "About the Civil War," Clara said excitedly. "I'll talk about my experiences as a nurse on the battlefield. People will want to hear those stories, especially when they know that the money goes to find missing soldiers." "But you don't like to talk in public," Sally reminded her, "and you'll have to travel all over the country." "It's true I don't like to talk in public," Clara said, "but maybe if I do it often enough, I won't be so nervous. And I won't mind traveling across our big country and seeing new places. Washington will always be my home. But it will be nice to travel and see other cities too." So Clara started traveling around the country, giving talks and lectures about her work during the Civil War. People everywhere, people flocked to hear the angel of the battlefield as she was known by now throughout America. They were curious to see in person the brave nurse who had risked her life over and over again to help Union soldiers. Imagine their surprise when out would come a short woman no taller than 5 foot 3 inches, slim and straight, wearing a simple dress with her black hair combed back. Was this little woman the famous nurse who'd saved thousands of American lives right in the line of cannon and artillery fire? But as soon as Clara started talking, they knew that she was the one. Even though Clara always had notes with her, she usually spoke from memory. And she spoke so well that her listeners could practically see the battles of Fredericksburg and Chantilly and Antietam right in front of their eyes, and relive those times with Clara Barton. Clara put the money made from the lectures into her efforts to find the missing soldiers. But her schedule was very heavy, and she was getting weak and ill. In her usual Clara Barton style, she continued working and giving lectures and traveling without stop, until one day she came out on stage in Portland, Maine, opened her mouth to speak, and nothing came out. She couldn't say one single word. "You're exhausted," the doctor told her. "You've worked hard during the Civil War, and you're still working hard now, 3 years later. You must stop all work and rest for 3 years. 3 years? Clara said, but it came out a whisper, for she still couldn't talk. 3 years, the doctor said, and I know just where you should spend those years. In Europe. Europe? If you stay here, you'll never get any rest, the doctor told Clara. The people in Europe don't know you. They'll leave you alone, and you'll be able to get your strength back. Clara had no choice. She was exhausted and ill. She found other people to continue her work, packed her bags, and took a boat across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe in 1869. But the doctor was wrong. The people in Europe had already heard about Clara Barton. They were waiting for her, and they already had a job for her to do. Clara Barton, Chapter 11, Discussion Questions. Number 1. Why do you think Clara wanted to cry when she heard that the war was over? What would be your reaction if you were in Clara's shoes at this moment? Number 2. How did a promise lead to Clara traveling the U.S. to give lectures? Did you ever make a promise that turned into a bigger task than you originally thought it would be? Number 3. Why did Clara lose her voice? Do you think it had any connection to President Lincoln's death? If so, how? Please post your discussion in the comments below. Also, remember to click on the link in the description box below to fill out the registration form and become an official member of the OFLP YouTube Book Club. Next week, I will post the next chapter and discussion questions, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much for listening and participating. Have a great week.